Welcome everyone. Look at us today. We have a wonderful live in-person artist talk with Tracy Hayes. We have a couple of attendees in the audience who will be asking some questions hopefully. And anybody who has any questions for us, please tap in. And I just want to say thank you so much for joining us today. So we have Tracy Hayes, and I am in conversation with myself, Amy Regan from Seesaw Art here in Manchester. And we are going to be discussing the work that's sitting directly behind us, this installation of the obliteration scrolls, which is on view for 2 more days, today and tomorrow, included in the exhibition Marking Folding Time. So Tracy, welcome. Thank you so much for making the trip. Tracy's from all the way up in northern Vermont, so we're glad to have her here down in Manchester.
So thank you so much for accommodating this live event. It's like, it hasn't been like this for a very long time. It's wonderful seeing people and old friends, so
definitely, for sure. And just one quick note, Devin, if you see any questions that pop up, can you please, we have a camera person, we're very fancy today. Excellent.
Yeah.
So we exhibited works by Tracy Hayes in our January exhibition entitled Push Pull. We had a fantastic conversation during that exhibition as well. So please check out our website at seesaw.gallery to find that conversation, which allows us to really dive in today. We've had a primer. So can you tell us about this installation?
Yeah, absolutely. And once again, thank you for the opportunity. I'm so thrilled with how this was installed because I think, usually when I've had the opportunity to exhibit these, they've been kind of exhibited kind of, vertically hanging from a ceiling, which I really love, and it exhibits the flow, and it kind of gives you an ability to walk around space and through it, etc. But I, because of like where these come from in terms of my making process, I think it has to do with like abundance and conversation, and like, turning away from symmetry. So while, I appreciate, the potential of the work to, hang a certain way and flow a certain way, I also really, was interested in seeing what could happen if they are kind of installed more as I see them and experience them usually, which is to say, piled in a corner of my studio, right? And so that said, I did not, curate the exhibit, nor did I install the work. So it's kind of like a dual sense of, excitement to me that, like, in having the dialogue with you and having had a prior experience with, this, that display and push-pull, that you would have picked up on the resonances within that, and then, like, it allows me to kind of, get a gist of whether or not, like, some of what I'm thinking is also maybe, being picked up on in, other curatorial efforts. So, again, I thank you for that, and I love having seen the work in this way because I have not displayed it in this way, nor have I really presented it in this way, and I'm just really, I really like it.
Yeah, since we did the first exhibition in January where the rolls were, the scrolls were classically floor to ceiling, which was really fun and kind of rolled up in that way. For me, it was a really interesting exercise because talking to you about this work, I try to accommodate as much as I can if any of my artists have some really great ideas. And I kind of came in thinking like, okay, how am I going to install this? I've already done the floor to ceiling. I had some ideas like maybe it could go overhead, but I was like, maybe that's too much, I'm not sure. But literally I was just jumping in the elevator to come up to the space, and I thought, why don't, I like kind of knew it was going to be in this area, but I had like, maybe I'll put it on the floor. I literally wasn't exactly sure what I was going to do, but I said, I have that table. And that's going to give us some height. And then the idea of piling them on top of one another, I kind of had. And it was a little bit of an envelope pushing for me because I'm like an archivist, right? Like everybody sees, I post detail shots on Instagram and everything. I want to see every single little mark that's made in each piece, but that's part of this work. is that you can't see all of it at the same time, especially because they're double-sided in a lot of cases. So I think that there's like so much discovery in there, and obviously like so happy to have this work. And like I said, like you can't go crazy and look at every single piece and pick out the best moments. It is what it is, and it is how it happens. And I think it's very natural in that way, and I really enjoy that. Definitely. There's some really favorite moments, like this piece behind you here. There's a really fun vellum one in the back, and yeah, I feel like it's very successful, and I'm so glad that you responded to it. Like, I'm always nervous to be like, here's how I hung the show. Like, it's like the day beforehand opening, usually. Yeah. And you were like, no, I really love that. So yeah, it's a good collaboration for sure.
Yeah, and I know it's hard to present like in this format, but I'm really thrilled with the ability for the work to be in dialogue with all the work on the wall as well.
Yes, definitely.
It's just nice. There's a nice like framework bouncing off, and I'm just like looking at a stunning wall right now. That is just so fabulous. But anyways,
for sure. Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about what drew you to propose this exhibition? Tracy, reached out to me and said, hey, I have this idea, and what would you think about having, these artists in conversation?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, in looking at Stephen Cabral's work, Kelly Lair's work, and Lydia Kinney's work, I'm a little more familiar with Stephen and Kelly's work because we were, peers and overlapped in a school program. But between the three of their works, including Lydia's, I was very interested, like, I know what my personal, tendencies lean towards, and, it's definitely, like, this work especially is definitely, like, very mark-driven, very, incisory, and that's a certain type of, visual language. And then, but, like, in thinking about, like, what that means, it's, like, I started going back to the idea of, like, marking, as in marking time or recording presence. And then, like, the flip side of recording presence is absence, right? And so, we were really strong that we wanted to present, an abstract, painter-rooted show. And, certainly what's on the wall is definitely that,
Definitely.
And, and I think what I really, responded in the link between Kelly, Stephen, and Lydia's work is that if we were talking about, Marx is a record of presence, and most people talk in terms of the positive, the flip side of that is absence. And so what does absence, convey? So, there's loss, there's, and then how are you conveying, loss or some of those kinds of, things that are hard to convey? And does that, slip into, the very purpose of abstraction? Who knows? That's not, what I'm suggesting. But, like, if we're getting into that realm and we're talking about absence, I mean, certainly there's, the absence in loss, there's the absence in, kind of like implied loss, and I see a lot of that in each one of their work. Kelly's work is really informed by a folding process that really elevates a certain care of the material and a history of the material, and pulls that in.
Yes, definitely.
Stephen, I've had the benefit of following him and watching him, and I know that he uses material in such a way that he's also pulling through different kind of like evocations of people in his life. And then Lydia, I know her less, I don't want to put words in her mouth, but like there's definitely these kind of like portals and kind of like these dual worlds being set up, and I definitely have the in my mind, just from an aesthetic perspective, just like looking and then sensing something in behind, which to me again, is just like an evocation of absence. Definitely. And how that works in with this, it's like, well, you can't see everything, right?
Yeah, as much as we might want to.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's absence in itself, or that's just like, aggressive, like, undocumentability. I'm not really sure, but so that's how I was kind of like thinking of things, and I'm just so glad that you were game for it.
Oh, for sure, definitely. Everyone can check out each piece on view at our website, seesaw.gallery. And when you do that, you can check out how closely the color is really beautiful in this exhibition. I had such a fun time hanging it and thinking about, I want to have both contrast but compare. I try to not do matchy-matchy, but there are some really beautiful conversations that are happening within the work. And I posted a video of the install earlier today. I'll post some install shots of the work and have them on the exhibition page as well, so everybody can really enjoy and see those conversations that are happening. But sort of pulling the line through the color was really, really exciting to me, and it was really fun for me to have such an abstract show and to sort of brush up on conveying those thoughts and talking to patrons, and yeah, definitely. So let me see, what other questions am I thinking about asking? So since we did work together in January, I wanted to try to have something that was a little bit different. And Tracy thankfully was also game to create some really, really beautiful pieces that are mounted and incredibly accessible prices, honestly, $60 or $40 for one, I just have to say it. But these are they from your sketchbook? Like pages from the sketchbook?
Yeah, they're pages from the sketchbook, yeah, absolutely. So
when you check out Tracy's Instagram, she is posting constantly about this sketchbook.
Really sketchbook look like this? You say?
Definitely. So you had the idea to name them Call and Response, and I know that was obviously a purposeful name. So yeah, tell us about this work, which I honestly absolutely love. I mean, they're so accessible, and you can get some really great pieces by Tracy. So just wanted to share. Yeah, tell us about these.
Yeah. Well, part of the challenge was, if I was going to provide small works, then I really felt strongly that they had to echo the intent of, what I was doing within the obliteration scrolls, which, part of that, and that's not because there was any pressure put upon me to do so, but it just makes sense for me to, try to challenge myself to, and it's not been something that I've been able to, necessarily resolve up until now, because, there is a piece of me that just in general just really enjoys, slices of this work besides slices of work, and I think maybe it's about, again, working towards, a more exciting, say, like, conversation if we're talking about visual language, like messing up the syntax, so going into that realm. So to create small works, I create small works all the time. I work, very, very, kind of like not manically, but maybe compulsively, as Lydia would say. On small works. Most people don't, necessarily see them because, they're just meant for me, and I'm working on different problems as I go along. But, with these works, I had been working on them, I work my sketchbook kind of like left and right, like kind of like, again, probably echoing more like the horizontal nature of working on the scrolls.
Definitely.
And so they tend towards a certain level of resolution that, was kind of off-putting to me. I'm not sure, and that's just me putting that on my own. Like, they tend towards resolution and kind of like beauty in a way, Yes. And that's kind of like against what I'm trying to work towards within the obliteration scrolls, and the only way I've been able to work through that is that, I'm obscuring and altering the time and like I'm working on these all the time, back and forth, there's no orientation to them. So I had all these works, and I started pulling them out, laying them out, and then what made sense was to separate them, re-dialogue them, if you will, re-sequence them. I think, just like any one of these pieces is much less interesting alone versus, as part of a whole. I think the same of these works now that I've calibrated the conversation between them.
So it's not like this was originally the left or the right side.
No.
You sort of were like, okay, one's
and these weren't made together. These weren't even related.
So
they're not even related. Yeah, no. They're
I completely thought that they were totally related together.
No.
Oh, I love that.
But then you see how the work could work towards symmetry, and that's another conversation. So some of them are standalone, and some of them are call and response. I think that's a little more along the lines of the idea of dialogue.
Yes, yeah, definitely. Especially, I mean, the singles are just so beautiful, and they, you're really wrapping in and pulling yourself back into specifically with this one. But I love that idea that you kind of like edited them together.
Yeah, absolutely. These were not made together, but you can absolutely see that they were
like.
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing that you talk about occasionally is the idea of hacking your own system. What do you mean by that? How do you do it? I want to try.
I do it by trying to turn against what is natural and comfortable to me. And I think I've done enough of what is natural and comfortable to me, which brings it to a certain level of resolution. And I got to the end of all that, for many years, and I just didn't know what the purpose of it was, And there's a real sense of dissatisfaction in it. And so I started to kind of like go down, probably a bit of a rabbit hole of like wondering, what that meant.
Yes.
And then trying to do things that turn against, like, say, natural instinct. And I don't know. Some people introduce like kind of like rule-based practices to me. That wasn't really my thing. But then maybe that's what I'm doing because if I have a scroll and I'm hiding portions of it, then probably when it started, I probably did impose some rules there. But I don't adhere to it. I never adhere to a rule for more than a minute.
There you go.
Go for
So,
it. Yeah.
Of course I will.
Hi, Jill
I love this whole
Weber.
thing. What I love,
Yeah.
what's so interesting to me is all of these have, they're beautiful, but they have a sense of containment.
Yes.
And no matter how you place those, there's no containment whatsoever.
Yeah.
It's blowing off the page. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing.
Yeah, what a treat to be able to thumb through Tracy's sketchbook over there.
You could leave this one, in your lap to me.
That's a really old one too.
Oh my God, it's so fabulous.
Oh my goodness. That's great.
Yeah.
Let's see. Yeah, I totally understand what you're saying about that.
Yeah.
That's something that Lydia said too. Like the work in this show, she was like, okay, I kind of feel like I'm very happy and comfortable in this one area color-wise. So she chose works that, she chose colors that she doesn't typically work with to learn from. And that's so brave to me to say like, okay, like I've made this resolution, but how can I push my own envelope, and how can I continue to live in the land where you don't know what the answers are? And I feel like that's really, really hard to do. So I love artists in a lot of ways, is they can sort of live in the unknown, which is tough, which is really, really tough for us to do, for sure.
The other thing that Lydia said that was really, I would love to have the opportunity to talk to her about is she kept on, she mentioned a few times, compulsivity.
Yes.
Oh, that was interesting.
Yeah, for
like,
sure.
Yeah,
like no matter what she said, no matter what is going to happen or what her studio practice looks like it could just, she could be working on her kitchen table, or she could have her traditional art studio, but she knows that she's just going to continue making. And Stephen also mentioned that as well. Yeah, for sure. So it really does come from a pure like space of working. And working continually, which to me is really enlivening. It really is, because I know that there are so many artists out there who are working constantly, and they need to be presented. And that keeps me going when I think like, oh, does it matter? This is so much work. Like I do it every month, But it really does.
It's like gardening.
It is, for sure. It has those seasons too.
And
definitely.
And the dirt.
Yes, and the dirt, for sure. But that's what makes everything grow.
Absolutely.
Oh, I love that perspective. That is really, really excellent. So anyone with questions, please let us know. We have Tracy's amazing thoughts that we can kind of dive into today. That's great. I feel like I could chat with you.
I know.
It's so funny. Well, when you dropped off, I totally forgot like you had parked in like not the best spot, and I'm like, oh, if she got a parking ticket, I hope not. She won't never tell me. But
I know. If there are no questions, I'm still responding to what Jill just said. The seasons of making, and I often think that there are. The longer you do this, the more you can kind of like have the privilege to focus in and bear down on what it is you're doing. Have the benefit of community and collaboration and connection and ability to have dialogue and push your work. It's like I think you start to become more and more aware that there are I've become aware there definitely are seasons to my making, because there's different times for different things. But there's also you're setting up just different potentials for yourself for things to happen.
yes.
And that's really hard to explain, and so you're kind of like, I don't know, these are things maybe head into a direction that it could shift, but you're not sure,
You have to almost not care, which is about what the outcome is, even though we're tied to our outcomes, we're devoted to our outcomes. But it's great when you can let that go.
Definitely.
This is so, it is you. For all the years I've known you, this is so you. So at what point did you go from black and white to color?
Oh, that's so funny. Yeah, for anybody out there, I didn't work in color for a long time.
Big variable.
Yeah, probably right around 2018.
Okay.
So last I knew, I turned away from a fairly formal painting background. I was very dissatisfied with, what was emerging in my work. And so I turned really, really closely down to, I went into a lot of printmaking. And then the etching, so I think that's where all like the rotational imagery came from, a lot of the texture, a lot of the incisary marks. And then when I turned away from, when I, had no longer any access to print, for whatever reasons, presses, etc. I went into strictly black and white drawing. Then I morphed into the base of almost all of my paintings. So I think color, it was about 5-6 years there where I didn't use color whatsoever. I went back into it probably around 2018. Yeah.
So you're constantly working on something in many different ways.
Yeah.
Does it typically come out through the scrolls or through the sketchbook? Are there any other sort of setups, like you don't have, some sort of canvas that's set up?
I have a ton of canvases.
You do? See, oh my goodness, I want to see all of it.
Yeah, go on. Everybody wants to go. So I do have a working space within my house. We did transition shortly, during north into Vermont, and I have a small area that I was able to set up within my house. And so it is kind of a funny thing because like these were never the things that were meant to be shown, if you know what I'm saying. And so I think that's also a part of like where I'm really like trying to hack my system, is the thing that I'm looking at and trying to resolve often isn't what I'm going to be able to bring to a level of resolution that is comfortable for myself, and so, and then again, without audience most of the time, you stop or and so like the one thing, like, so maybe it's always the thing that's in your peripheral, and so like these were the things that I do when I'm given time, and just I can pick up, put down, pick up, put down. I do have a panel of, I work on unstretched canvases that are 5 feet by 12 feet, maybe rolled up to 8 feet at the time to accommodate the walls. I've got maybe 4 of those done with another 2 going. I don't ever see them together because I don't unfortunately have a space where I can do that, but I keep hope. I layer things. Yeah. And then I have a whole wall of, believe it or not, stretched canvas that I can't stand on its own, and so I put them together, and I don't know, like, thankfully nobody ever sees those, so they don't know how manic and crazy I am. They're just, sooner or later somebody's gonna come visit and they're gonna be like, wait. And then I can just like unfurl something from in front of it and let it fall down, So that's that, yeah.
Yeah, so
I'm sorry. Yeah. Do you treat your canvases, or are they just the linen? Great.
So I don't treat no, they're not the linen even.
Okay.
Would that I pay for linen.
No.
No, well, you know what it is?
No, that would be too precious.
Yeah, it would be too precious. I do work against preciosity, and so it is definitely a process of drawn media, wet water-based media, various levels of that, and then sooner or later I just give in and start adding back into oil because there's like part of my sensibility that needs that again. Yeah. So by the time they're worked, they're treated. It's just they're not formally treated, because there's a lot on them.
So was this a progression? Because I remember traditional art, which I think has a place in our non-traditional.
Of course, yeah.
It's almost like a foundation.
Yeah.
But then you have to work against. You break it and go. Yeah. How did that transition happen? You probably said this on your last time.
Oh no! How did that transition happen?
That's a great question.
Time and distance, and then I went back to school too.
Back to school, which is what
Right. That'll do it, right? And then they basically dismantle every single argument you've ever made about yourself, and you reassemble it, and then you kind of like test all those. Here we are. Yeah. But I wasn't doing these in school.
No.
This was all
after.
Oh, these are all
okay.
Not during, no.
Wow.
No, those were all, I don't know what I was doing. I did a lot, but I don't know. It's in files. Well,
it's great.
That should be edited out.
No, it's still processed.
It made so much sense at the time.
It's still processed.
Well, you're under so much pressure, too.
I don't remember. There was also a pandemic. There was just a lot going on. Virtual, live. I mean, it's like, my brain's still calibrated.
Me too.
In a funny way, though, the only benefit I can think of it is that I think for a lot of us it was a break.
Oh, yeah.
A break, because it was a break in the world, it was a break in almost everything.
It was a schism. It was
I'm not back on the other side of it, personally.
But, it's funny because it's the springtime again.
Yeah.
And that's sort of like the time when it was like the most happening kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I was one of those people that was lucky that like in the way that not going in, being unemployed, it was like money was fine for me. I made more money on unemployment. So even though it was super scary, it also at the same time it really helped me sort of recalibrate my life in a way. Yeah. And I find going into springtime again, I'm like, wait, where's my sabbatical? Right?
Yeah.
Like which is so terrible.
There are seasons of life.
It's like, can we stop everything for a little bit? Like, I don't want that. But it's like, so it's like, oh man, I guess I got to take a vacation or something. But it was just like such an interesting time.
Yeah. It broke everything.
It did. Yeah.
And
definitely.
it's
It was hard. And exactly.
And it's ruined a few industries.
For sure.
In the arts.
Namely,
it's really
publishing.
tough.
Yeah.
Oh.
No, I know. Well, also marking full time, right? It's like that whole sense of, who are we? What is our record of being here? And then how are we, continually kind of like encapsulating that into something that makes sense in a different reality moving forward that, I don't know, something like that.
No
I
continuity.
can totally see that. Yeah, for sure. Oh my goodness.
But it's spring, we're back in our gardens.
Yeah, which feels good. Maybe it's kind of a winter thing.
Yeah.
For me, where I'm like, oh my god, like, can I breathe? Like, geez, I'm pro. But, that's so funny. Excellent. So, thinking about installing these, what are some other ideas? Like, how else would you like to see them presented? I don't know.
Oh, I know. I love them when they're. Again, given the fact that each one of these so they're all uniform in width, they're all 15 inches, and they're all, if they've not been cut, they all start out as 1,200 inches, so 100 feet. And because I work them back and forth, front and back, there's there's something very interesting to me about how when you roll them tightly into the edges, I love them kind of like presented. I'd love to see them next time. Well, I don't know. This one isn't going to work, but because there's something about a dialogue that I couldn't have imagined. Coming about by two indistinct. And it's not the same as. Because I've also cut my work many times and sliced them and collaged them. It's still not the same as like what I tried to do in those small works. There's something, something kind of elegant about the shape of that. I would love to see a whole floor of those.
Yes.
I would also love to go into like a real, like if I had my druthers, I would take one of these tightly rolled and I would go into like some warehouse space that's like a football field length and just like send it down the aisle and just be like, install.
That's it. I love that.
I say that anytime that anybody's ever tried to ask me to do that, I can't even I go sideways, I can't even bend, But, and then I think that this gets bigger, taller, I start to like really kind of like play with the structural aspects of it, and I hope to really, have an ability to test that idea with my collaborative partner, Deb Reed. She's made these like wonderful skeleton boxes that were these like giant metal constructions that are kind of like open on all sides, and sometimes she puts things in the middle and presents them that way, but we may be able to work on something together. She's also, a sculptor, so, and I'm not at all 3D, so, it'd be nice to kind of like work on some of the structural elements that way and see if I can get something built up and kind of undulating through a large space.
So I think you need to make a video of this.
We have a question.
All right.
A question?
Yes, from Kelly Lur. I'm interested in how you spoke about the scrolls coming from the periphery. Is this new for you, or has it happened before in some way?
Oh, it's so interesting. Hi, Kelly. I have had a sense for a while that my attention directly spent on any, one thing, and I think it goes back to like the idea of preciosity, that for whatever reason I work against myself to, bring it to the greatest potential of the work, if that will be the case. And I don't know how to say that. I mean, I'm also aware of that in terms of like what I read and make and like kind of like seeing where the apex of things go, and so it has been really, really fruitful for me. I don't know, fruitful is not really a great word, but like, to take the pressure off of what I'm seeing in front of me and have a whole other body that is like on the side, not meant for anything, and like, and it's not precious in terms of like the world. I mean, there's not anybody, there's no attention on it. It's just my own attention. Mm-hmm. And so I think, I don't know if that's answering your question. Please, Kelly, respond back. If not, maybe it's just more like an extensive sketching, that it's just like a working out, and then I get it,
Yeah.
No resolve.
No resolve,
But
no.
resolve would look like an end, and
Yeah.
then that would defeat
Yes.
the energy
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
movement.
Yeah. The motion in motion, it's the, it has to be, the potential has to be there, or else it's like.
That's why a little movie of this would be.
Did that answer your question, Kelly? Yes.
So there was a heart I saw on the screen.
Oh, she hearted it.
I think.
We're also looking just like a little teeny.
I know. It's so funny.
I love the way this is being executed. I'm so impressed.
Yes, she says yes.
Yes. Okay. Excellent. Excellent. Yeah. I love the scroll how you have it here where it's the two together because we're so curious. We do want.
I
to
know.
see
I'm
all of
dying
it,
to
right?
open it. I thought about
I
you talking.
to me, it's like they're a little unruly in like the best way.
Oh no, they have
Right?
yeah.
Like it's
Yeah,
just like
unbendable.
they all exist and
Yeah.
and there's so much effort there and there's so much time spent there. Like you've been working on this since 2018, which like we said is like it survives that schism and of the pandemic. And I think a good spot would be the Arsenale in Venice for these. I think it's big enough.
Oh my gosh.
Don't you think so?
Right?
Thinking
Yes.
about the Biennale right
Yes.
now, of course,
Yes.
but
Yes.
that would be so much fun. Oh my
Yes.
goodness.
I don't know. They'd have to ask nicely.
Yes, very nicely. Yes,
Have you ever
for
been to
sure.
one? Oh, it's so much fun.
In college, we got to go, and it's one of
Yeah.
those things where it was like, oh
We,
my
it was
goodness.
by accident that we were there and it was happening,
Oh my
and it was
goodness.
amazing.
Yeah, talk about
Amazing.
football-sized spaces.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. What's going on with you? What's coming up? Ideas-wise, exhibition-wise,
I-
anything? What's going on in your world?
I have to say, this right here really activated me in a certain direction. I'm really, really excited to try to test out some of the ideas, to see this in, probably just a Photoshop situation. Right? I mean,
For
but still,
sure.
no, it
Sure.
really did, and then, what I'm working on personally, so I do have a collaborative partner, Deb Reed, I mentioned her before. She has a wonderful gallery space called Gallery Rag. It stands for Radical Act of Generosity down in Gloucester,
that.
Mass, which is like magical area. And so she has asked me to help her with programming. This is her second year. To help her with programming for a 9-week sequence of Culture Splash events, which is like the Gloucester Art Walk. And so it's literally a day in, day out situation where we're having, inviting artists in. So a lot of like, kind of like discomfort happens. And,
Yeah.
she's very much about improv. I'm, getting into a little bit of that. But like, the nature of the event means that it's a, less curation, higher degree of.
Yes.
And we're also asking people who participate to kind of work against their tendencies in a way. So innovation in terms of, not to the larger industry as large, but innovation, against what they usually, present. So I'm really excited to kind of get that going as well, and see what, happens from there. And that, opens the door for a little more collaboration, and
Yeah.
and then Stephen Kelly and I have a show at South Shore Art Center in September, and I'm so excited. And it was just such a thrill to see, like, they very generously invited me in, and it was just really excited to see how, like, the vision for the work, like, to see it, like, in a little bit right here, how the work works together, and it's just going to really, like, help leap into, another kind of, like, level, I think, for everybody involved. So it was nice to have you linked in with that process as well.
Oh man, we're so thankful. Seriously. In Gloucester.
Yes.
You said it goes with their like Thursday art walk.
So it's called Culture Splash Gloucester. It's every Thursday night starting in. Deb Solo is going to open it on the 21st. I'm not sure if that is specifically, but
Yeah.
we do all the way through. So other than the 4th of July, it'll be every Thursday from July through August.
Wow.
And it's a different roster and a different exhibit. We're trying to activate, the area in terms of like expectation. There's just a really great flow of people. It was just really, really energizing last year. Hopefully, that energy doesn't flatten out. But we like to think we're part of that, So
Yeah, especially where you sort of become known for putting on events in that way, and like I'm jealous of the constant stream of audience.
Oh yeah, well it's only one night though.
I know,
Yeah,
but like
there's no expectations on
sometimes,
it.
sometimes like that's like enough for a show,
Yeah.
right? But it's really great because you're going to be hitting so many people from so many different communities, and then like my favorite thing is like forcing myself to talk about the work. It's like, okay, why did I choose this? Who is this? It's tough, you know, and to like try to make those connections with so many people who are coming through with that built-in audience. I feel like it's such a muscle.
And it is a transition, and then trying to bring in performers and music elements, and then have kind of like off the cuff conversations and see what those dialogues form.
Yeah.
So it starts from there. I mean,
oh man, it's so exploratory. I love that.
That's all Deb. She's visionary that way.
Great. Yeah, I'll definitely be making it down there.
Yes.
It's beautiful too, of course. I mean, New England in the summer, like, does it get better? I'm really a big proponent. Oh, that's excellent. Great. Well, anyone with any extra questions, please drop them in. We want to say thank you so much to everyone who's joined us. This has been so much fun and something new for us, which is excellent. What's the best way to keep in contact with you and follow along?
I do have a website. It's very rarely updated, and Kelly mentioned that in her talk. I thought, oh my god, I forgot about that. I have to do that. I want to say Instagram, but I was recently hacked and lost everything. So
sore subject.
Yeah, it's okay. But I mean, it's still like there's a presence, and if anybody were to send an email to my website, I would get it. And if anybody were looking up online, I think I would have a presence on Instagram still. So I do. I have another. Account. So which is great because it gets the whole notion of audience and temporary.
Definitely, for sure. And then something else that I always think about, like, what's keeping you going right now?
Community, collaboration, connection, conversation. It's the only thing. It's just eternally the only thing that gets me out of my head, which is there's just a lot of challenges I think right now for a lot of people. I'm not individual in that, nor am I particularly as affected as most. But it's kind of tough. There's a lot of institutional failures and a lot of failures in general, and it's any kind of conversation I have with anybody and any kind of collaboration always. I mean, it's enough.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, definitely. I totally feel that too. I'm starting to think about working on a new exhibition or planning exhibitions out into the future. And what's been wild for me is I've been asking artists like, hey, do you want a show? And they're busy, and I'm like, good.
Nice.
You know what I mean? Like, I want to make sure that that's happening. It's fun to try to like get that timing right. You got to kind of hit somebody at the right time, and they have the availability to be able to do it. And then just all the ideas that spur from there.
Yeah.
It's really fun to think about what could be and what will be. Honestly.
Yes. Absolutely.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Tracy. This has been
thank you to our audience.
Thank you to our audience.
Thank you to our video audience.
Yes,
and thank you to the audience. I don't know how to do this anymore.
I know, there's a lot of audiences.
I don't know. I had 0 audience. Now I got like 3 I have to address here. All of 2 people at a time.
That's excellent. All right, I think we're all set. And anyone? Oh, let me just do my little ending statement here.
Yes,
thank you
very much,
for sure. My pleasure. It's been so much fun. The exhibition is on view until tomorrow, for April 28th. Everybody can check it out online at seesaw.gallery, virtually, and see what's coming up for next shows. The work will always be on the website, so if you happen to miss us and you're seeing us, a couple years from now, it'll still be there. So please check it out, and really appreciate the support. Definitely.